Hey, guys, welcome to the Oracle Popus channel. I wanted to talk about family dynamics. And by the way, guys, this hiatus, has been making me do a lot of more deeper self reflection surrounding myself. And I'm getting to this space in my life where it's saying, Jasmine, it's time to completely share your truth. And a part of us sharing our truth is telling our story. It always starts with our life story, and I think it's time for me to start my testimony, right? And I want to talk about family dynamics because I do feel like a lot of people can relate to this. I also apologize if anyone hearing any children coming in and out the house in the background, but I do want to just be rawly authentic all the way to tell my story. And I feel like a lot of people is going to be able to relate and able to have the wisdom through this video on how to navigate through these things, the certain karmic lessons that I've learned on my own personal journey. Take what resonates with you and leave the rest that doesn't. But this is something that I'm realizing, what's happening collectively with a lot of chosen ones. And I know that has been going around with kind of a haughty spirit, like, oh, I'm chosen, I'm special and different, but it's not coming from an egotistical standpoint. The chosen seed that I am talking about surrounding family dynamics are those who are used to feeling like the black sheep. They're very different. They are the karmic cycle breakers to a lot of the generational karmic issues from generation to generation that most family members are not willing to be aware of or deal with head on. But you are the person who's trying to bring out the skeletons in the closet. You are the person who's saying, you know what, who's going to speak up and stop being delusional? Like, this needs to be talked about. And sometimes you're the one being targeted as the bad guy because you're the one provoking the shift, provoking the change, provoking things that needs to be brought up to the forefront that most people like to sweep under the rug and things like that. And this is something I feel like that I do experience with my own intermediate family. And I'm seeing how that has played out with me as a chosen of someone who's taken the narrow path. And the narrow path is meaning, people who is literally choosing to go against the status quo in all areas, socially, spiritually, religiously, all dynamics where most people is trying to find the most alignment with self. Other people are just staying in the self-destructive patterns. Those are the ones that I am talking about. Those who are being divinely guided by spirit. Those who are being truly divinely appointed and anointed by spirit, who are spiritually inclined people. These are the people that I am talking about. And all of us have our own roles as chosen people. We do. Because there's people out here who is meant to provoke change and be in their truth, but there is always some type of spiritual inclination in their path in some way, shape, or form. Why? Because those who are chosen require spiritual healing, spiritual reconstruction, reprogramming to the consciousness when it comes to that narrow path that most people are scared to take. Because, baby, let me explain something to you. It is a lot of work. It takes a lot of self-development. It takes a lot of changing itself. It takes a lot of facing things head on that most people don't want to go through, especially when it comes to the dark aspect of the consciousness, One of the things growing up as a kid, I was verbally, mentally, physically, and sexually touched. I was abused in all areas. Thank goodness I've never been sexually molested, but I have been touched by older men. Our man. And growing up in this, my mom has always been the type of person that said, Jasmine, if there's anything going on that you need to say, come tell me. And my mother's always opened that space for me, but I just never could trust and feel safe with her to do it. And the reason why I felt not only did I feel safe to tell her, because every time I try to choke up to say it, the guy that was with my mother for 13 years on and off, he always was around giving me this look that scared me and terrified me, where I just didn't say anything and just got scared to tell my mother. Not only that, but my mother also worked a lot. And just from my personal experience, if she wasn't working, she was out at the club. If she wasn't at the club, she was, gambling at bingo. My mother wasn't home a lot. And it just, my main experience in my childhood was always experiencing this man because he had so much alone time with us, watching us all the time because my mother was always gone, you know. And so I didn't feel safe to go to my mother. You know, I didn't build that healthy foundation with my mother to know that, okay, she's going to comfort me in spaces that is needed, you know. And this is where I can definitely intervene astrology into this, you know, because I am an Aquarius stellium person. So I have 4 placements in Aquarius. I'm an Aquarius sun and moon. And a lot of Aquarius placements in astrology, we do go through relationship dynamics with our parents where there can be some type of detachment from them in some way. In this case, when my mother is an Aquarius moon, I definitely experienced a lot of detachment situations with my mother. It wasn't really affectionate. She really is not the affectionate type. She does not express herself like that vulnerably. She showed love through action more than her words. But at the same time, the lack of nurturing and motherliness definitely played a part into the situation growing up as a kid. And I remember after I turned 10, I just couldn't take it anymore. So this man was doing this to me last I remember from probably 4 years old, more so like 5 years old all the way to 10, you know, very integral parts of a childhood of a child, the first 10 years of their life. And this man's known me since I was 2 years old. But like I said, I only have memories of him maybe from 4 all the way to 10. I didn't really experience the major abuse from him that I remember consciously until about 5 years old. And I remember I was at the daycare and I just got to a point in my spirit where I'm like, I can't take this anymore. I can't take the burden of dealing with this kind of abuse anymore. This eating me up. And, you know, that's a lot of pressure on a 10-year-old at the time. And I remember talking to the manager of the daycare and I said, please don't let us go home. I do not feel safe going home. I don't want us to go home. I'm tired and, you know. And she was just like, go home. And she said, everything's going to be fine. So next day, we get back to the daycare. CPS comes to pick us up. Mind you, at the time, there's 5 of us. I'm the oldest out of 5 children, you know. There's me, my sister, 2 sisters, and my 2 brothers. My baby brother at the time was still a baby. He was only probably 2 to 4 months old at the time. Maybe 4 to 6 months, I'll say. He was about almost 6 months old, if not 6 months old. So he was still a newborn at the time when all this went down. And I remember CPS grabbed us. You know, as a kid, I didn't understand how the adults and how CPS work. I just wanted to be safe, you know. And I remember me and my sisters and all of us was telling them all that happened throughout the house, you know, all those years. And my mom gets off work finding that her kids are gone, you know. I didn't take into account all of the emotional turmoil my mother had to go through in that space. And I remember my mom came to me and was like, Jasmine, why couldn't you tell me this? And further into this, we will talk about why my intuition was right as a kid, why I just couldn't tell my mom this situation, you know, because she always said, I would have protected you. I would have done these things. And it showed later down the road after everything, that was not the case, you know. I just told her I didn't feel safe. And Larry, you know, the guy always threatened me. He always threatened that he would do something if I told my mom anything. So we was in foster care for 2 years. My mom was fighting to get us back for 2 years, especially when my mother had her own newborn taken from her, you know. You be with this man for 13 years on and off, and then you finally divorce him after this whole fiasco. And I remember there was a time where the first year my mom got us back, we all stayed at, and this is where I sit here and say that, you know, she didn't protect us like I thought she would. Because the first time, what battled us the first 2 years with my mother is because the first 6 months to a year, my mother got us back. The man that abused me and my siblings, mainly me and my sister, our sisters, He was on house arrest, stayed at his brother's house. He was on house arrest for the whole situation with the whole child support, not child support, but the whole child case and all those. Now, mind you, my mother was still under investigation at the time when this happened, right? My mom didn't have a place to go at the time because around the time when CPS was getting my mother, they also made her lose her job. My mom had a really great paying job at a company. They found out what was going on and they ended up firing my mom, So she was trying to find work. It didn't take her long to find work, but then she had to literally move out of her place and all kinds of other things started to shift. So the first year after CPS situation, my mom got us all back. Because my mom had nowhere to go. Who did we stay with? The same man that abused us. The same man that abused us in his in the house he stayed with his brother. So we all stayed there for like a good 3 months, right? And this is the part that I say that I know my mother's probably going to be upset about, but I have to speak my truth on because my mom will not admit that she really did not protect us. You literally had CPS case done to you because you was with a man who abused your kids just for this man to be around your kids again. Now, mind you, this man did not touch me no more. He did not abuse me because I was a lot more in strength to speak up. So he knew not to, mess with me anymore. He knew I ain't gonna fuck with Jasmine because I know she'll talk. She ain't scared anymore. No, because I felt that strength to make me realize you was just mentally manipulating me and gaslighting me, making me feel like you was this big ass macho man. In reality, you was just weak as fuck, So my Nana, my mom's mother, my grandmother, found out that not only did my mother have us again, but that she still had this man around her kids. So what happened? My Nana ended up reporting my mom to CPS again. And you know what? I'm glad that my Nana did. My mom and my Nana did not have the best relationship probably for a few years after that because my mom felt betrayed that my Nana had reported it. But you know what? I'm glad my Nana reported it because why would you have a grown ass man that abused your kids around your kids again? Even if he didn't hurt us this time around, it's the principle. Why would I have went to you, Mom, to protect us when you still didn't after the whole situation? So we end up leaving again a whole nother year. My mom fought to get us back, right? Didn't see him for a while. Over the years, probably another couple years or whatever like that. This is the transition I went into from the last 4 years, Going back with my mother at 12 as a preteen is when a lot of my life started to get activated. I started to see things as the oldest of her child, of a lot of mistakes and decisions my mother has made, So around this time, we stayed in my hometown for a couple more years and my mom met a new man, Will. Great man despite certain issues he had, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. We'll talk about more about my mother's love life that actually reflects relationship dynamics that affected me and how I am where I am now. It's such a really beautiful, healthy relationship, but that's for another video. My mom ended up getting remarried to a new guy, and I just felt like we're finally free, right? We're finally free. And my mom ended up staying with getting married to this guy, and we ended up relocating to Louisville, Kentucky. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. So I was there the first 14 years of my life. And in that transition, I moved to, Louisville, Kentucky. My mother's second husband had alcoholic issues. He was an alcoholic. Great man, but just had alcoholic issues. Later, in a few years as I got older, I really asked him what led him to drinking again. He said it was due to my mother cheating and all the other extra shit, but that's for another story. Seeing my mother's relationship dynamics and how they were, how it affected us as kids with her decisions growing up. And I give my mother grace because she was a young woman who had kids. My mother had 4 children by the time she was 21 years old. She had me at 15. My sister 17, my other sister 19, my brother 21, and then my last brother at 25. So my mother, we all grew up with my mom while she was making all her mistakes. A lot of mistakes she's made that caused so much trauma on all of us. But yet, it's our responsibility to heal from that, you know? So I would say after my mom got divorced from Will, she was only with Will for like 5 years at the time. I had to be like a senior in high school at the time, maybe, or maybe a junior in high school. Between a sophomore and junior year, when she left Will, my mom moved into a different house, rented it. And what did she do? Around that year, around my high school years, she allowed that same man that fucking abused us back in the house because he had nowhere to go. He was with a girlfriend at the time. They had nowhere to go. And my mom, with her big heart, because that's my mother, I'm going to allow you and your girlfriend to come live with us. So this man was in the house. Again, I was a teenager. He wasn't fucking with me. I realized as we got older, around our mid-20s, my sister, the second oldest of us, she told me that this man molested her from childhood all the way to 17 years old. And I was just confused how he was able to molest her that long secretly. But it was because my mom still allowed that man around us on and off throughout the years, even after getting us again. I remember asking my sister, did you even tell mom that he was doing these things? And she was like, yeah. She didn't do anything about it until it got to the point where he almost choked me to death. And then she finally said something. So you allowed your ex-husband to still molest your daughter. I remember after 18 years old, I had so much pressure of parenthood on me at a young age. I might not have to pay bills and get a job, but I had so much pressure of taking care of 5 kids. You know, my mom was working, all those type of things. She had somebody that needed to watch her kids. I get it. I was her oldest child. But it also came with so much heaviness because I did the cooking, I did the cleaning, I did the homework with the kids. I did everything a parent would do. And I just got so used to the responsibility that my mom was barely home to the point where, shit, my siblings see me like their mother. I was basically their second mother. I knew my siblings more than my mom knows her own kids, you know? And she still do what she did. She was always still going out, doing other stuff while working. And my mom at the time growing up, you know, she always worked 2 to 3 jobs. My mom was a workaholic growing up too. Even if she didn't have, you know, the time to go out, she was still working a lot. So it put me in that space where there was no choice. I had no choice but to take the parental role in a lot of ways. The only issue was that made me feel like it was an issue of me taking on that parental role for my mother is because as much money as she was making, and my mom was making a lot, damn near 6 figures a year with all the jobs she was making, if not more than that. Not necessarily more than 6 figures, but she was making a lot of money. Despite her making all that money, she also was not good with finances. She had issues paying bills on time still, using her bill money to go do what she wanted to do. She also had a shopping addiction. I remember when I was a teenager, I used to go with my mother every week to JCPenney's every Friday when I had a sale. My mom was always spending no less than $1,000 a week on clothes and things that she wanted to do. And granted, my mom worked hard. Get what you want, mommy. You make a lot of money to do it. But it was at the benefit of losing her place. And so let me realize, damn, so you just out here doing all these work hours really just to please yourself, not even to for real take care of us. I remember there were times we had to make something out of nothing in the kitchen. I grew up in the suburbs, but yet seen so many different places growing up because my mom was just not financially responsible. She wasn't smart with money. Till this day, she would not admit that to herself. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. She allowed that man to come back in, and at 18, I just couldn't deal with it anymore. I remember my uncle was like, if you want to come back home, I'll take you in. And I remember breaking down on the phone to tell him to come get me. And I remember telling my sister Julia, mom's going to put all the pressure on you now because I'm leaving. And it was so hard for me to leave my siblings, y'all. It was so hard for me to leave my siblings because I knew the abuse and just neglect that they went through that I had covered up, and I took on that burden. So they didn't have to see that or deal with it. I tried to make sure everything was still normal because I was just trying to take on more of the pressure of what was going on as a reality of things so they didn't have to see it. You know, I made sure there was still some food that I cooked so they could eat without them thinking there wasn't no food to eat. Just so many things I try to protect them from that I knew the reality of. And I knew that, damn, I don't want to leave my siblings, but Jasmine got to figure out Jasmine. And I remember I came bitter at 18 because I was like, now I'm grown. You can kick my ass out if you felt like it. But I went ahead and chose myself, and my mother cussed me out. She was upset that I left her. You're a bitch for leaving. You're selfish. And I remember for a long time, because my mom created that dynamic, that me being selfish, thinking about myself was so wrong. I have to constantly self-sacrifice and be a martyr in order to be loved. Man, oh man, did I have to do constant reprogramming in that in my older years, in my later 20s. But I remember my sister in our mid-20s told me that she got molested till 17. I remember when my sister told me when she was 17, my mom was pimping her to older men in their 40s and 50s to get money. I remember my siblings telling me Julia had to sleep with older men to get money just to pay for groceries and pay for bills because my mom wasn't doing it. My mom used to tell Julia, oh, this man trying to give you some money. Go ahead and go do what you got to do. Give me a piece if he give you some money. My mom was basically pimping my sister at 17. Your daughter was sexualized and molested, and you knew that, and you still sexualize her more? My sister been through a lot of shit more than me. That lets me know I was divinely protected. Till this day, my sister still holds it together like everything's fine. No, and it's not. You know? It's crazy to me. My mom knows she could have never told me to go sleep with other men. I would have never done that. But you have your daughter do it because Julia, by all means, was the mother figure. As my siblings got over to recognize what was really going on, all they remember was Julia. They don't even remember for real me. Till this day, my siblings will come and call me if they need something or they need someone to talk to because they know they can't do that with my mom. But they had more memories of struggle shit after I left because I hid it so much from them. And so Julia was constantly sacrificing, constantly being used, constantly being abused, still by my own mom. As we got older, I just stopped talking to my mom the first few years. Me and my mom had a very strained relationship from 18 all the way to probably my mid-20s, early 20s. I was still able to talk to her again, but it was still really strained. Still had to love her from a distance. Because out of all of my mother's kids, I don't talk to her the most. I don't ask my mother for shit. All my other siblings is codependent and ask her for things outside of me and my younger sister. She's independent and she do her own thing too. You know. But and yet I was always treated the worst after. And I remember my mother always was like, Jasmine, I don't understand why you like this with me, why you act so distant, this and that. Like, are you serious right now? Even despite the things my mother put me through as a teenager, I was still a mother's girl. I was a mama's girl. What choice did I have? My dad wasn't around. My biological dad was not around my life like he needed to be. My dad was on drugs, right? My dad was meant to be a famous singer in his early 20s, and he thought he could deal with the rock star life and tried cocaine, and he was hooked on that shit for decades and just fucked up so many opportunities for himself. You know, so my dad, I remember the first 7 years of my life, he was showing up in my life a little bit, but not much. Not enough for him to realize he should have took me more often where I could have been avoided to be abused. And I remember my dad, when he found out I was abused by my mom's husband at the time, you know, he was ready to kill him. But Dad, if he was around like you needed to, that would have never happened. Do you see what I'm saying? So I didn't have both parents protecting me. They didn't love me like I deserved or nurtured me. And at the end of the day, two parents, they needed to learn to love themselves. They only moved how they wanted to. Two parents that were very selfish. It is what it is. And granted, my mom made sure we had good insurance and everything. My mom worked hard. I give her that. There were times as a teenager my mom tried to gift me things to show appreciation, but it was only very, very rare. It was almost like, well, this is an expectation and you the oldest, so you should do this. And this is like a dynamic I wish most, I can't even say just black people, but just from the black culture, I see that quite often. It's always the oldest child that takes on the most burden. More of the parental role towards things, you know. And so there's this dynamic here when it comes to family dynamics in that space that, you know, as I got older, I had to learn to love with healthy detachments, love from a distance. But I still had a strong emotional attachment to my family because I'm such a family-oriented person. I always took on a mother role. Anytime I come around my family, I stabilized it because I was just that stabilizing force in people's lives, you know. Even from a distance now, anytime I come visit my family, they all feel better. They feel stabilized again. Their life is chaotic when I'm not around. Just goes to show that Jasmine's got to focus on Jasmine. And it took me till 30 years old to leave my family, to say, it's time for me to leave again. You know? And then it's like, till this day, there was times when I was there for the holidays 2 years ago. My mom had Thanksgiving, had that man that abused us around, everybody saying hi to him and chilling and laughing like shit didn't happen. And this is the issue that I do have when it comes to shit like this, because everybody acting like everything's fine. So no one's going to address the issue and the problem. Well, you know, it was the past. It doesn't matter. And that's the issue with relationship dynamics with family members. They don't want to address shit head on from generation to generation. How many family members sweep shit under the rug? Oh, it's life, it moves on. No, because it shows how it manifests in your personal relationships with other people or in your love relationships. How you can be someone who's self-sacrificing or seeking love because you ain't took time to love yourself and heal through things that should have been acknowledged. Till this day, I've never seen my mother ever sit there and admit what she's done. When I addressed the man that abused me, I sent him a letter through Messenger on Facebook to let him know, I'm just letting you know. I'm letting this go. I forgive you and let this go. But just know, if there's a time you're ready to talk, we can. And what did he do? He went to talk shit behind my back to someone else about it. People who don't want to take self-accountability that they fucked up. That it's okay to say you fucked up. But own your shit, because the first thing with healing is owning your shit. Feel through your shit that you shitty, that you were shitty. It doesn't mean you got to be a shitty person, but soak in your shit and deal with it head on of the conviction. You don't feel no conviction what you did, something's not right. But I'm not going to hold on to that for closure. I have to make peace with this in myself because it's my responsibility to deal with this. Whether you decide to want to continue this cycle with yourself with Delulu and delusional issues. And granted, these are things that I have talked about with my mom and my parents. Both my parents, my mom and my dad. Like, I know what y'all did, but y'all got to learn to forgive yourself what y'all done too. It's my responsibility as an adult to heal from it. I have said that to them. I've told my mother this multiple times. You have to forgive yourself what you done. But not one time have we actually sat as a family to say, this is the issue, that's the issue, this is fucked up, da 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 da. Why? Because most family members like to deflect. Most people ain't ready to hear about their goddamn selves. And this is the issue with unhealthy family dynamics. So how did I pass this through all of these years? I had to do a lot of shadow work. I had to sit with Jasmine to realize, Jasmine, you a shitty person, not to other people, but to yourself. And everybody in your life who has abused you, who's neglected you, who has not loved you through romantic love, through family, whatever it may be, it's because they're all teaching you to love yourself better. They're teaching you that you do deserve love. All of them who've made you feel powerless, made you feel strong, didn't make you feel strong, that dimmed your light, is teaching you how to take it back. Because if you were someone who wasn't nothing and wasn't powerful, they wouldn't have fought so goddamn hard to make sure to put you down, to keep you small, to make you feel a certain way. They seen that light and it triggered them. You are a mirror to themselves, and they don't want to see that. I had to give myself grace. I had to approach my dark emotions of anger and humiliation and pain with no judgment. I gave it love. But I had to feel through that shit. There is no way around pain. You have to feel through pain in order for it to pass through. Pain is our teacher because it's strength. What makes it powerful is turning your pain into power. That's how you do things. Turn your pain into power. That's the gist of it all. And it's just, this is the objective, is learning to forgive yourself, learning to give yourself grace. There was times I had to consciously put myself back in those spaces as if I was a kid again, just to face those events all over again, head on, consciously, to make peace with it. It triggers your body. And we'll talk about this when it comes to trauma and how it can be stored in a physical body. But this is the time where we have to address the most darkest spaces in ourselves from this lunar eclipse in Pisces. And in this space for me is transiting my 8th house of dark secrets and taboo things, fears, traumas. This is my healing outlet, is talking through it. I had to learn that, Jasmine, you can learn to love your family from a distance. And I'm on that narrow path where they can't come with me. As much as I want them to, they still want to repeat karmic cycles of the same generational curses from generation to generation in our family. And I just refuse to be that. I'm not going to do that. My path is sacred. I want peace. I want healthier love. Because what I grew up with was not healthy love. It was toxicity. It was projected trauma that had nothing to do with me. It was recreated trauma that my mother have experienced because she was not protected. She had sexual trauma, and she recreated that with her children. My dad's dad abandoned him, so he did it with his kids. It's all repeated trauma, and I just refuse to fall into that same ancestral cycle. You do not have to take on the pain and burdens of your generational curses. How you break that is starting with you to change and do things different from what your family members have done. And you're going to have to be comfortable to step outside of what they do. A lot of y'all are still staying in a lot of family karmic cycles because you're afraid to be yourself and be in your truth. But during this lunar eclipse, there's no more hiding. You can't be delusional to it no more. You have to find a healthy outlet for healing at this time. And things that y'all have not dealt with emotionally is coming to the forefront. Make peace with it with love. Do not judge your uncomfortable emotions. All emotions serve a purpose because it's telling us something we need to pay attention to within ourselves deeply. This is dealing with the psychological process, y'all. And there's layers to that shit. I had to practice daily meditation and breath work. I had to understand the art of moving energy through stuff like that. I started to practice yoga because yoga is a form of an occult practice that helps move healing, is shadow healing. It helps move the trauma out your body of the energies that's stored in certain parts of your body. And yoga helps move it around for you. So the objective here is face these unhealthy family dynamics. And this is my testimony because despite all that I have been through, I feel empowered. I feel like the raw, authentic Jasmine. It took me 32 years to get to this point completely. Because I was ashamed of my story, not even realizing that. Spirit had me go through all of this to speak my testimony. And this is the first part of it, guys. I'm excited to go deeper into my life story and about a lot of things and wisdom I can give you guys. And if you guys do have any questions, please say it in the comments so I can answer, because there's just so much wisdom I've learned on this path. My biggest one was learning the art of letting go and healthy detachments with love. And choosing you first was the biggest lesson in this when it came to my family situations, even till this day. But I love you guys, and I'll talk to you guys later.